from NBC News. This is Today.
When we come back, we're going to have an emotional warning about the dangers of lead paint. But first, this is Today on NBC.
This morning on today's Consumer Smarts, lead paint danger. It has been 3 decades since lead paint was banned for residential use, but that doesn't mean the hazard to your family is gone. Today, consumer correspondent Janice Lieberman has a warning now for all parents. Janice, good morning.
We are so upset. This is very disturbing. You probably think of kids eating paint chips, but often it's actually dust containing lead caused by renovation in an old home that can poison young children.
Make a guy.
Yeah. Tamara Rubin is like most moms. She puts her family first.
We have 3 children and a 4th on the way.
The Rubins wanted the perfect home for their growing family.
When we purchased the home, we signed the lead hazard disclosure statement, but we didn't give it a second thought.
She knew her historic home had lead paint, so she carefully chose a painter.
He told us he was certified to safely handle lead paint. He told us that we could stay in our home while we were having the work done because he was working on the exterior.
But she says safe procedures were not followed, and poison dust made its way inside.
There was a microscopic invisible layer of lead dust all over our home as a result of the work he did.
And that's when Tamara says her nightmare began.
My children got sick right after the work was done. They started vomiting and having headaches.
2 of her young children were tested, and horrific news followed.
We got a call in the middle of the night saying, you have to move out of your home, your child has lead poisoning.
Tamara's story is far from unique.
There's about 250,000 children that suffer from lead poisoning right now. It's still a very significant public health threat.
The numbers are truly alarming. How big a problem is lead in this country?
Lead is a really big problem. I think people misperceive that it's a problem of the past because lead-based paint was banned back in 1978. But actually, there are as many as 38 million homes in the United States with lead-based paint.
Rebecca Morley of the National Center for Healthy Housing says all parents need to beware.
Oftentimes people think it's just paint chips that poison kids, but in fact it's the very fine, invisible dust that's generated from deteriorated lead-based paint. The dust can coat their toys, can get on their hands, and then they put them in their mouth.
Generally, adults aren't affected. The real risk is to young children who ingest the dust, often resulting from renovations on old homes.
The best way to find out if your home has lead-based paint is to have a certified lead-based paint risk assessor or inspector come through.
Right. As you can see right here, we got a reading of greater than 9.9, so what that's telling me is it's 10 times greater than the federal action level.
Any home built before 1978 may have lead-based paint. Older homes built before 1960, for instance, almost absolutely have lead-based paint.
As far as Tamara Rubin, their home was fixed to be lead safe, and her family now lives in another home. But nearly 3 years later, she fears 2 of her children have permanent brain damage.
The youngest, he's very aggressive and violent, and Avi's just drawing scribbles. You won't know for sure until they reach school age how this is going to impact them. But it's irreversible in terms of the damage.
She's resolved to get the word out to other parents.
When I found out that the baby had lead poisoning, that was just the beginning of learning about what I can do to both get my kids better and to make a difference and to make this so it doesn't happen to other families and other children.
And our heart goes out to those children. Well, here's what you need to know. If you live in an old home and have kids under the age of 6, get your house inspected for lead before doing any renovations. When you're having work done, make sure the paint stays intact and that you've cleaned up all the dust before any children are nearby. That's the key.
This is just so heartbreaking. So when you talk about it is possible, you're saying, by this last advice, to renovate and clean everything out. Now, how do you do that? Do you have an expert group come in and clean it out?
There are plenty of experts that you can get, but that's what you need to do. Don't just get any contractor and make sure that they know how to work with lead. And there are certain websites that will give you all the information. The Environmental Protection Agency has one. The Center for Healthy Housing has one. these are things that you should go look for. You can call this number, 1-800-424-LED. They'll give you information. They'll give you inspectors who are certified. Don't just go with anyone who hangs a shingle. You need to know, because this is serious stuff.
Right, so don't drop the ball on this. Also, though, you talk about just children, so adults are probably not affected. So at what age are we worried? Teenagers?
They're saying under 7, but
Under
if you're a
7.
grandma and you've had renovation done and the kids come to play at your house, you need to watch out also. I mean, the family that we went to, this house, was also, she was a grandma. She was worried about the kids who come over. Any dust that they pick up on a toy or a football and put in their mouth, that's lead.
Permanent brain damage is not to be messed with, and kudos to the family for being so honest so that other people can be benefited. Thank you so much.
And there's also money for low-income people if you call HUD. So
okay,
let's
call
get that
HUD.
Out. Yes.
That number, or how do we just call HUD?
Yes, health and right.
Okay, thank you so much this morning, Janice Lieberman. And coming up next.